Intro music. Hello and welcome to the Face Downs, your source for TCG news and all things Yu-Gi-Oh! That's right, a new year, same us. I'm Lucas.
I'm Ruben.
And I'm Joe.
And happy 2022. Woo. Here we are, doll. New year, same game. Still talking about the same game, but you know what? Let's go.
I would like to officially declare that I am now a Pokemon player. I refuse to acknowledge what a Link summon is.
Yeah. No Xyz, no Links, no Synchros.
Just Charizards, baby. No, Joe, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm actually kind of excited for this year. I know it's supposedly going to be a 2020 version 2, but I don't know. I feel like, version 3 now, even. But there are some events coming up. It looks like the lockdown stuff could be behind us, fingers crossed. And yeah, we're going to have a good year, I think.
Feels like living through an international plague has really swamped the last couple of years for Yu-Gi-Oh! Events specifically.
Yeah, no other game has lost out. It's just Yu-Gi-Oh!
Can't think of a single other thing that it impacted in my life. So, new year. We obviously covered the ban list and a lot of other topics in the previous couple of podcasts. So, what I wanted to do and introduce today was just kind of a catch-up, start of the year review of some of the most important cards that are upcoming in the next couple of core sets.
Yes, from our last discussion, we've now officially received a release date for Dimension Force. So that's aiming to be releasing in May. And OCG at this moment in time have yet to receive the set. I believe it releases end of January. We can fact check that if you'd like. But this is the next core set for Japan. And obviously we're still awaiting the release of Battle of Chaos, which we are expecting a sneak peek for at the start of Feb, if I remember my event schedule correctly. So we are currently in the midst of getting a whole bunch of new things revealed. And it's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing a lot of support for some older archetypes, which is like what has got a few people excited, and also just like some brand new things for like Pendulum.
I mean, we're seeing a lot of legacy support, which I think is honestly the best way that they're going to be going forward, because there isn't an anime that's like tying the game to the show. Like they're very much focusing on like rush duels at this moment in time, which is awesome. Rush duels are super cool. If you haven't tried the video game out, definitely recommend it. Lucas seems to be having a blast. But it's cool because it's kind of, they're now a bit more free reign with how they want to approach new core sets, and they're not restricted to particular shows or, a protagonist or antagonist cards as they release.
Makes me wonder if the anime stopped working, because for the longest time the anime felt like an ad for the card game. And with Vrains, I just don't know if it had the same impact. They've realized that what actually is selling packs is callbacks and getting returning players back in by going, hey, you played this deck back in 2013, here's the most broken, insane thing you've ever seen. And it gets people to come back. Look at recent examples like the Agent structure deck. We're going to get a Dark World structure deck soon, which I think is going to be huge, hopefully. And hopefully actually a structure deck if we analyze this year's releases. So, yeah, it seems like removing from the anime model and moving towards this kind of nostalgia model, gearing up to releasing what will inevitably be the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! In Master Duel in what looks to be like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, well, they've just put out trailers like 2 days ago, so...
They said winter 2022 originally, and we are technically cross-continentally in winter, despite it being 28 degrees here today.
Yeah. I'm excited for it, though. I feel like the move away from anime will help nostalgic players get back into the game for sure. Like, I know that there's players out there just sitting there with an old deck that's been gathering dust on their, like, on their side piece, I guess, and all they want to do is play that deck, and they're just sitting there waiting. And like, I know heaps of people that love Edison format, things like that. If you give one of those decks like some new support, it's going to just bring them back into the game. So I'm all for it at the moment.
Yeah, and obviously we've spoken a lot about legacy support, but we're also seeing quite a lot of new support and even our new TCG exclusive archetype due to come out. So I guess kind of the first thing I want to touch on is some new, like, kind of new cards of note, or cards that have been announced since we've recorded that are really kind of shaken up the game or have a lot of potential going forward. And I guess the first one to kind of touch on, this is a Dimension Force release, is Beyond the Pendulum. Lucas, what are your thoughts on this one, or what does this one do?
So Beyond the Pendulum is a new Link 2 that requires at least one Pendulum effect monster as its requirement, or I believe one Pendulum monster. And it has two effects that are both really strong. So Electromite historically was the glue to hold Pendulum decks together, and I think what maybe limited it was, or in terms of like getting it banned, was the amount of splashability it had in basically every single Pendulum deck. So Beyond the Pendulum reads, on summon, if this card is link summoned to the extra monster zone, you can pay 1200 life points, ignition, or trigger, add one Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. After adding it to your hand until the end of this turn, you cannot activate monster effects. Also, the effects of cards in your Pendulum zone are negated until you Pendulum summon. And then it has a second effect. If two monsters with different original levels are Pendulum summoned at the same time to the zones that this card points to, you can target two cards on the field, destroy them. So a really, 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 really good card. Obviously, the first thought of mine goes, this is just Electromite, because the strongest part of Electromite was turning any two Pendulum monsters into the exact Pendulum monster you needed, be it a low scale, a high scale, or a relevant, powerful Pendulum monster like a Celestial Magician, or in the case of Endymion, you can add Servant, Master, Jackal King, anything. So yeah, Ruben, resident, I guess most Pendulum adjacent player, you haven't touched them in a while. Thoughts?
I mean, this is great. Obviously, OCG are spoiled rotten because they also have Electromite, so it's a matter of just turning Electromite into this to even more facilitate your perfect scales. I mean, I think this is really powerful. Pendulum do need a lot of help. Like, as we discussed in our last Painful Choice, I believe a lot of cards on the list are paying the sins for decks that are no longer relevant. You know, things like Astrograph potentially. I mean, especially like I said in my Painful Choice, the Draco Face-Off. It's like these cards are just so much, they're so power creeped and so like not as strong as they used to be that they're kind of just sitting there as a like atonement. And this is something that I feel like is really directly is in the eyes of Konami a really strong piece of support. I think it's well overdue. We haven't seen a really strong piece of Pendulum support for a very long time. Yeah, I'm happy. I think this is a good card. I think this is well designed, and it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very strong. Like, its drawbacks are enough. I feel like the fact that you can't do everything, and after you have to Pendulum summon, you have to get to that stage of your combo to I guess get the full benefits from it. So you're not gonna. It's not like Electromite in the fact that you can set up with Electromite. So Pendulum will still have some issues around setting up, but this definitely does help, and helps you get to a big Pendulum summon. So I feel like I'm happy with the card. I'm happy that Pendulum players get some support finally. Yeah,
it's ironically stronger than Electromite for a couple of reasons, but it's not as, in my opinion, splashable, which I think is exactly where it needs to be. Notable things about this card I think that are worth talking about are that its first effect is not once per turn. So despite locking you out, if this card is ashed or impermed, you can just make another one. Or if after you've Pendulum summoned, you make another one to just search, because you're done using effects. Because it's just until the end of the turn that your things are negated, so all your negates and such will be live again. That's pretty strong, and you can chain block with its other effect with other on-summon Pendulum effects. So, for example, like Harmonizing Magician or Celestial Sorcerer, Celestial Magician.
That's triggered. That's not on summon.
You can chain block with the destruction effect. So you can either protect this thing's destruction effect, making it really strong, or you can use the destruction effect to just target any random cards on the field and make sure that your searches or summons resolve. So really, really, really strong card. I'm a huge fan of it. I think it'll make Pendulum decks what they should be, which is generally like a toolbox kind of go second deck with lines to interaction going first. Love that it can pop your own cards as well, because it means you can pop double Iris Magicians and stuff like that, or Plush Fire if it comes back.
don't know about that one. It's fine.
Yeah, so cool. I mean, this card is great. It's exactly what summoning mechanic support should look like, and it shouldn't look like Zeus.
Yeah, unfortunately. And yeah, again, this is coming out in Dimension Force, so this is guaranteed in a core set that we're expecting in May, and Japan are expecting in a couple of weeks, I'm assuming. So exciting. I feel like this is a cool piece of support. Like you said, Joe, this is the way to do summoning support correctly. And it's a nice balance. Moving on, we've got the next TCG exclusive archetype. Now, similar to how they did with Dawn of Majesty and put Buggy as the sneak peek promo, they have introduced another TCG exclusive archetype or card as the premiere promo for Battle of Chaos, and that's Libromancer Geek Boy. This is a level 3 psychic, which is super fascinating. And I guess, Joe, as the new ritual player in our pod, why don't you give this one a little read off and give us your impressions?
So it says you can reveal one ritual monster in your hand, special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can add one Libromancer spell from your deck to your hand, and you can only use each effective Libromancer Geek Boy once per turn. So it's good, but we don't know how good yet.
We don't know how good. Obviously, there's two ways that TCG exclusive archetypes go. They go War Rock or BA. And I hope this is a BA way. This is a super strong effect. And the fact that it's a level 3 psychic as well does put it in range of a very lovely quick play spell that's getting reprinted in Grand Creators.
Nami really likes to just tease us about Teledad. Like, oh, here's another level 3 psychic. We gonna break this one? I don't know. Ooh, 3E Telly. Like, for some reason, psychics are now getting the treatment that Beast Warriors got last cycle, I guess, where they're just like, what if we broke this? Like, very deliberately, I think.
I think this card hinges on how good the Libromancer spells and other things are. So if this is like B-Trooper with that new fusion spell kind of thing that just doesn't do anything, it could be like, I mean, it's still a free extender if you're playing a ritual deck, but like, it could be more though. Like if the ritual spells are like do some wacky stuff that's broken, then this card's going to be huge. But we'll have to see.
Notably, it doesn't add a Libromancer ritual spell, so there is a chance there's some ritual style support cards that this adds that aren't just ritual spells.
Yeah.
A couple things of note about this card. First of all, its first effect has the genericness that implies this may be an archetypal summoning mechanic, in the same way that like the Drytrons all have, you contribute one ritual or Drytron ignition, special summon this card and do something. This has that feel, or similar to like the incantations as well.
Yeah.
Very incantation, except it doesn't lock you out of the extra deck. So can be presumed this archetype will not, in general, lock you out of extra deck plays, which I think rituals do require now. There was a time where that was their limitation. These days, it feels like rituals are just so weak that they need to be able to access the extra deck in pretty broken ways. And the other thing of note, I guess, against this card's favor is that if their requirement is that you need to draw a combination of Libromancers and ritual monsters, then they do need playable ritual monsters, I think. Otherwise, the difficulty is if you draw a bunch of Libromancers and no ritual monsters, you just like lose the game. Whereas the Drytrons have the benefit that they can use themselves, so that if you only draw Drytrons, they can still get you to the plays. So a couple of notes about this card. Interesting. I mean, if that is their core summoning mechanic, these are pretty good cards.
Absolutely. Not plus ones. This card reads as a +1, and I feel like that's super powerful in any summoning mechanic.
And its summon isn't any kind of cost. So
exactly,
it is not only a +1, it also like unconditionally extends you. That's very strong.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but with E-Telly, it still triggers effect, right? Because it just says if this card is special summoned. So yeah,
definitely a deliberate part of this card. I mean, they're really looking to break E-Telly. I've said for a while that the one thing keeping E-Telly safe is that there aren't many good psychic monsters with on summon effects. There's like Psy Reflector, not Psy Reflector. Yeah, it's Psy Reflector.
Yeah,
it's like the only one that is like a generic kind of power play. So yeah, this is cool.
Yeah. The next card we'll let Ruben talk about.
Finally, As we've discussed, the OCG have now received the secret shiny box. So this was the support sets for Sky Striker, Witchcrafter, and Mayakashi. And as per, the last card to be released was the Sky Striker card. It was we were having fun, like looking throughout the day of like, oh, it's a spell. Oh, it's a quick play spell. What does it do? And they just recently had a huge convention, and this is where we're getting a lot of our information from. And they released the final Sky Striker piece of support. So this is Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage. It is a quick play spell, and it reads, if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, you cannot special summon monster from the extra deck for the rest of this turn after this card resolves except Sky Striker Ace monsters. Also, send one other card you control to the grave, and if you do, special summon one Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone or EMZ. And if you have at least one light and one dark Sky Striker Ace monsters on your field and or in your grave, the summoned monster gains 1000 attack. Obviously, true Sky Striker fashion, the spell is not once per turn. And I have witnessed many an OTK with this card. It is kind of crazy. The ability that this card turbos or chucks out your extra link monsters is amazing. It essentially gives you a Kagari on your opponent's turn, as well as then your Ray Revival from grave. I think it's super strong. And the attack boosters are unnecessary because it just gives Striker the thing it lacks the most of, which is just pure power.
Yeah, it's a good card. I think it's not anywhere near as good as Engage.
No.
On the legacy of Mobilize. And I think it doesn't necessarily push the deck beyond like where it is now. I think it's very strong, but it also reliably does lock you out of the extra deck for the rest of the turn. So if you need to use it to like start your plays or to get a monster on field, you can't Verte into DPE, which is currently how Striker is kind of surviving, I'd say, in the current meta. But this card lets you dodge hand traps. It lets you push for damage. As Ruben said, it lets you Kagari during your opponent's turn. If they don't, sometimes you just don't want to attack into a Sky Striker link to give them that bonus. Now there's going to be that debate where if they have linkage set, they're going to get it regardless. And it also triggers Area 0, which is really, really good because Striker players have been playing MST and Twin for the longest time as a fallback plan in case they can't get Ray. This card effectively replaces it and gets you to go plus. I'm really glad it locks you out of the other extra deck summoning or like a generic extra deck monsters because this would make Verte basically guaranteed in every opening hand, which sounds a little bit too good. Perhaps
just a touch,
yeah.
But that's fine. Honestly, that restriction is welcome. I feel like this is exactly where Sky Striker are potentially just going to progress forward. Like there is no need for it to be the super crazy splashy engine anymore. I think Konami are looking at Striker as a way to internally play such a strong engine. And as we discussed, the deck is very powerful in Singularity. Not as much now, obviously, with how much has been taken away from it. As well as the way that the game has progressed since its initial release. But this card is powerful, it is unique, and it is, very fun to watch playbacks of. I'm not going to lie to you guys. At most, what I've seen based on initial lists, it's kind of maybe a 2 of. Probably 3 if you're playing a more pure build. However, Destiny Striker, as the TCG is kind of running with right now, it's no more than 2 at this moment in time.
It feels very much like
I was going to say, Joe, you hate
Swallow's
Striker.
Nest. Yeah, I hate Striker. But
what do you think of this card?
I don't hate them. I just don't like the Mind Striker. Let's put it that way. I think it plays a lot like a Swallow's Nest Skybridge sort of thing, and it just helps them push more by themselves rather than having to rely on things like going into access code to like finish off games. And the fact that it can dodge around things is what makes it pretty nuts. Someone Valor's your Kagari, you can tag your Kagari out, and you get the effect. And I feel like it's a very good card. It's going to see a lot of play, and I like it because it makes the Striker player probably play a more pure version, which is what I like to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm obsessed with this card. I think it's really well designed. I think that the two pieces of support that the deck got from the Secret Shiny is super fascinating. Obviously, Hamp, the in-archetype Kaiju, is super powerful as well. And to be honest, I think this is the support done right. So I'd like to keep seeing this legacy support that's a lot more locked into decks as opposed to kind of flashy splashy. That's not really, I think, how support should go anymore. It becomes too broken too quickly, and we see again too many things on the ban list as a result of them being too generic or too incorporable.
Yeah.
All right, quickfire. We're going to go through the Blast from the Past anime/nostalgia reference cards that just got announced. I think this is like a special box with alt arts in Japan.
Yes, this is the history collection.
The history collection. So there are 6 new cards, and all of them are related to one of the, I guess, core TCG anime that have come out. So we have Dual Tower Alcatraz. It's a field spell that says at the start of the battle phase, activate this effect. Each player can reveal one monster from their deck, except a monster with question mark attack. If they do, banish those monsters face down. The player that revealed the monster with highest attack can special summon one monster from their hand. And if they do, it can attack directly. And then the second effect, once per turn during the end phase, you can activate this effect. If this card is still on the field during the end phase of your next turn, destroy all cards on the field. Quickfire thoughts?
Funky, gimmicky.
Yeah.
Is a wipe. Is a board wipe field spell. Could be relevant. Other than that, I think the other effect is a bit dumb.
Yeah, bit gimmicky doll, but it's cute. It's based on the center. Is that what it was called in 5Ds?
I thought this was like a DM reference. I don't know.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
I think these go in sequence, right? Because the next one, yeah. I think this is like an original Yu-Gi-Oh series reference, but I'm not sure.
And where would that be? Is that the
Moving on.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Don't know.
Next, we can't spend. These cards are not very good. All right, Dual Academia. Dual Academy. This is another field spell, and it gains these effects based on the types of monsters on the field. So Warrior Beast Pyro, once per turn, if you activate a trap card, you can target one card your opponent controls. Destroy it. The second one, Dinosaur Sea Serpent or Thunder. Once per turn, if you activate a spell card, you can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. And then Machine Fairy Fiend, once per turn, if you activate a monster effect, you can target one face-up monster you control. It gains 1,000 attack.
Wow.
This is lame. I don't
Moving
think
on.
this is cool. Yeah. Next field spell.
I
mean,
you
please,
guys kidding
Pyro
me?
support. Pyro support.
Okay. There are no Warrior Beast Pyro trap decks, but this card turns every single trap into free Raigeki Break.
Yeah. I guess.
If there was a Pyro trap deck, this card is unbelievable, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you just
There needs to be one,
said
though.
the key statement. If there was, then.
Sure. But I think this card is actually really insane if you
Potential
have those
down.
typings.
Yeah. Potential
I mean,
down the
people
line.
play trap cards that just say target of card your opponent controls, destroy it.
Yeah, I'm sure
So-
in like 2025 when they release some archetype and they forgot they printed this card, then it could become good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if they just want to push like a Pyro archetype for once.
I mean, hope this indicates Pyro support. That's all I'm saying.
The other two typings are, all those effects are garbage, so it's worth keeping an eye on the trap effect because it is really, really, really good. All right. Riding Duel, Acceleration, Ready, Set, Duel. Continuous spell card. You can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. When this card resolves, if you control no other cards, you can add one Synchron monster from deck to hand. So,
Love that.
tanky.
Great ability.
Once per turn during your standby phase, place a signal counter on this card. You can remove 2 signal counters from your field and send this face-up card to the graveyard. Draw 2 cards, then send a card from hand to grave. Wow.
Love this card. This is great. I mean, Synchron is not a deck. I mean, they keep trying to make it. I think this is great. It's tough that it's like obviously once per turn and then no other cards. So, tough on that one. But, I think this is strong.
Yep.
Adding a Synchron monster is not a joke. So
People played Tuning when Jet Synchron was legal just to get Hulk. And that card wasn't as good as this card. So by that metric, this card is very good. Joe, any thoughts? Any deck ideas this has given you?
Not really, but I do feel like it is a decent card.
Effectively, Shard of Greed, Tenki. I mean,
Yeah.
you really can't ask for anything more than that for an archetype.
You can't look past it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also from the field, so, Signal Warrior buyout win.
yeah.
Okay.
Win.
Next up, Overlay Network. Continuous spell. You can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. During the main phase, you can activate one of these effects. So you can choose each turn to do either one of these. You can target a face-up monster you control that has a level. Special summon one monster with the same level from hand or grave in defense position. Its effects are negated. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck during this turn, except during the turn you activate this effect, except Xyz monsters. Its other effect, target one Xyz monster you control and add a card attached to it to that card's owner's hand.
Love this. This is cool. This second effect
cool.
is really unique. They've never really printed cards that interact with the material. This is cool. I like this.
Yep.
Strong in Xyz decks, strong in recovery. This is well done.
This is really well with Larval Chain. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
This is deceptively card advantage on a continuous spell in both. Neither of its effects have a cost. So as long as you can maintain any kind of the activation requirements, I'm pretty sure this card is going to get you a card every turn. This card seems seriously quite good in Zodiac, just in general. I mean, a lot of the time you end up with a ton of Zodiacs either attached to a monster or in the graveyard, and they all have the same level, so that's quite good. This card seems pretty playable in Pure Lyrilisk. This card seems pretty playable in Utopia, especially because a lot of the Utopia monsters have on-summon effects. So you can on-summon effect, add a card, and then when it's used as Xyz material, just get it back for next turn. I think this card is legitimately quite insane. Despite not being searchable, I don't believe.
Is there not something that searches overlay?
Maybe. But
Maybe.
I don't think it's part of the Utopia deck currently.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Battle Royale mode. Joining. This is finally Fortnite in Yu-Gi-Oh! Continuous spell card. Activate this card by targeting one effect monster on the field. The first 2 times that target would be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed. When that target is destroyed by battle, the player that destroyed it gains 2,000 life points. So, sort of putting like a bounty on a monster. If the turn player's opponent takes battle or effect damage, they can apply this effect. Special summon one level 4 or lower monster from your hand or deck, and if you do, lose 2,000 life points.
Seems a bit gimmicky, but special from deck isn't a joke. Yeah, it's a bit slow.
So obviously the application for this is turn 1, if your deck burns the opponent, then you get to... If the turn player's opponent takes battle or effect damage, they can apply this effect. So if your turn, your opponent takes battle or effect damage, they can summon?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, this is trash. There's no way to break this. I guess if your deck burned you during your opponent's turn, that's kind of funny.
I mean, it's more likely like if you take battle damage, you something out, but then you've just summoned something that...
I think you're dead at that point.
Yeah, you're probably losing at that point.
And then finally, into the Vrains. Normal spell card. You can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. Special summon one monster from your hand, but its effects are negated. Then immediately after this effect resolves, link summon using that monster you control. This link summon cannot be negated. Also, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when a monster is link summoned this way. And then the second effect, if a link monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card, add one monster with the same original type as that monster from your graveyard to your hand.
This card is great. I mean, we saw this, like, Muskets was, I think, the first application that a lot of people thought of when this card was announced. Because being able to not interact with your max summon is incredible. Max is one of the most broken link ones ever printed for an archetype. And this is great. I feel like this is a really strong piece of support. It doesn't lock you into anything either. Yeah. And it's, it puts you into any link one that you can possibly summon. So I like this. This is really strong.
Yeah. I'm with you there. And just given the extra bit with the grave as well is quite big.
Yeah.
All these cards have nice secondary effects. And I think for nostalgia support, these are actually like way better than the stuff we normally get. I mean, this card is definitely strong. I don't know if there is currently a deck that is going to really make use of it. Like you mentioned Muskets, but Muskets like resolve max and then still lose the game. Unfortunately, they don't really have a closer, and most of the decks with Link 1s generally don't have a huge problem, like Salamangreat, for example. could play this, but they don't have a lot of issues getting to Baylinks and, you know, getting free specials in general. So I think we're yet to see a deck that like fully abuses this card, because it is a little bit of a neg one.
I mean, I think this card is a really good example of just any deck that needs to get to Link once to start playing, because they can't Judgment the summon, and they can't negate and destroy if it has an on summon effect. So obviously Max is a good example. Baylink's Searching Sanctuary, you can't stop that.
But I mean, would you play this in Striker?
No, because the deck just got linkage, as previously mentioned.
And I think that's the thing. Like, Striker is the premier Link 1 deck, and I don't think they play this card. So it doesn't see a home in the best Link 1 deck in the format.
For now,
its potential is high. I guess just being a double summon with Meltdown protection is good, but not like I'm not building decks around it, you know? Muskets are happy. I'm happy.
This is a good card. I mean, I think, like, again, if we then see, you know, your Dual Academy thing, if we see a Link 1 deck, this card is something that they'll put forward.
100%. If a card is printed that says, like, a Link 1 that on summon, like, search 2 cards and pop a card on the field, like, when we're there, then this card will probably be pretty good.
It's called Alistair the Invoker. Have you not read that link? Yeah.
You have a special summon an Alistair the Invoker, see what happens. Okay.
So perfect. I mean, so we've got some history, we've got nostalgia support, and then carrying on with this theme, we have more nostalgia support.
Now, Joe, how you feeling?
Great.
What's the temperature like in your room? Could you describe maybe the environment you're in?
So the computer heats the room up a bit. I've got the window open. It's not great airflow. It feels like it's about 40 degrees, but we are still cracking on. We are fine. Heaps of water. We're good. Alistair has gone, so the room does feel better.
Speaking of the weather.
Oh, the weather. Oh, that's right. I was meant to do that segue. Yeah, the weather is very hot.
Funny that you mentioned the weather.
Yeah, great. Thanks for mentioning. Yeah, speaking of the weather.
Oh, God, we're the best podcast ever. Oh, my God.
See, it was actually so hot, I forgot to mention the weather.
Flames around my head.
Well, speaking of the heat, this new support is hot. Ruben, take it away.
So in Dimension Force, as previously mentioned above with Beyond the Pendulum, they're introducing a lot of legacy support. Notably, a lot of the archetypes that were on the creator card poll have received a lot of support. You know, we can also talk about it at the very end, but the Inzektor support has come out, and spoiler, it is not as good as these next two cards. So the Weather was a lovely archetype debuted in Spirit Warriors. And it was always short of being able to do things. I think a lot of people, you know, first of all, want a red weather painter because there isn't one, and that's technically like the rainbow color spectrum, so there's no red weather. But, you know, this was an archetype that, you know, famously controlled, stunned out, and had never really had an ability to swarm or generate resource advantage quite quickly. These two pieces of support seem to mitigate that quite well. So we've got the first card, which is the Weather Forecast. This is a field spell that simply has 3 effects, and it's, you know, you can only activate one of them per turn, and you can only use the second and third effects once per turn each. So after you activate the Weather Forecast, when it resolves, you can place a weather spell trap from your deck to your spell trap zone face up. Great effect. Second, you can also treat face up the weather cards in your spell trap zone as the weather monsters and use them for the link summon of a weather link monster. And then third is during your main phase, you can immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon one the weather monster. This is a great piece of support. This does so much for the deck. Basically upping your copies of Snowy Canvas to 6. It means that your Snow normal summon doesn't have to just fetch Snowy Canvas to search. It can fetch things like Thundery or Rainbowed. There's a lot of things that this can facilitate. Obviously, the ability to treat weather cards in your spell trap zone as link material is really powerful. It generates your ability to get to Rainbow or their new link monster a lot quicker. And then the additional normal summon provides you with a lot. Things like Weather Painter Aurora trigger on normal summon but have the same effect as Snow. Being able to put things out like Weather Painter Cloud to then regenerate your resource advantage. Thunder to, swap canvases out is really strong as well. This is a great piece of support. This is a legacy support done right.
I think the weather would have played each of these effects separately as canvases. I think that's what's so cracked about this card, is if there were 3 new cards announced and they all had one of these effects, I think they would probably make it into the weather decks. So the fact that this does all 3 on one card, I think is quite... it's pretty pushed.
Oh, and also a field spell, so it doesn't occupy your spell trap zone.
I mean, it makes sense. The weather actually never got a support card since their first release. So...
Rainbow Canvas and Dark Neostorm.
They got 1.
They got a piece.
Compared to some of the other deck building sets we've seen that have gotten just ridiculous amounts of support. I mean, Live Twins, looking at you. So getting so much in one card, I think, is how you speed up a deck back to, I guess, playability. I wouldn't say tier 1, but this card does a lot. I mean, the fact that you can use spell traps as link material, you can use these spell traps as monsters for the spell trap effects, which is kind of crazy. And as you said, it also ups the versatility of the canvases you can grab turn 1. So you can actually get more often a rural canvas or something to spec from deck. Is that the one? Rainbowed canvas to spec from deck, which is actually really, really good. Joe, you ever played Weather Painters? You ever seen some of your casual players pick this up?
No, I haven't. But, I mean, just reading that card, even though I don't really know what the deck does, like, it reads as just a very good field spell. It's something that does so much. Like, that's what you want. But yeah, no, I think it is interesting because it's got people talking about the weather. Like before we, when we did our deck building set podcast, I think we went up to the weather and we're like, the weather, yeah, they're kind of crap. Moving on.
I talked mad shit about the weather.
Yeah.
I was real negative on the weather.
But I mean, to be fair, there wasn't much positive things to talk about with it. So this is
kind of justified.
Yeah.
The issue is that you read every weather card and you go, so what's the play? You think you're going to get to the trap that pops a card or negates or does something, and it just never comes. You don't actually get that. Of course, the link 3s are probably the bread and butter win conditions of the decks. But previously, it was so difficult to actually link summon one of these monsters because none of the weathers, when used as link material, return to the field. They have to be used for a weather effect and banished. So you would link off all your weather monsters, and then suddenly you just have nothing left to work with.
Yeah.
So the ability to treat the spell traps as link material means you can generally at least end on one weather monster, which snowballs really quickly when paired with Rainbow or
their new link monster. So Weather Painters also received a new link monster, and this is Weather Painter Moonbow. This is a link 3, and just like Rainbow, it requires 3 the weather monsters. However, now with the forecast, you can use your spell traps. And it reads, if this card is link summoned, you can special summon one of your banished the weather monsters. And this is super good. This can be, it recurs anything that you would use. For example, Snowy Canvas can just put your things right back. Or anything that's maybe Call by the Grave, or anything that any monster that you might not want banished can just go right back. And obviously put it underneath her link arrows, which are bottom left, and bottom right. And it reads, the weather effect monsters this card points to gains the following effect. You can quick effect banish this card, then target one monster your opponent controls, banish until the standby phase of the next turn. And if this link summon card is destroyed anyway, you can special summon Weather Painter Rainbow from your extra deck. Really good, really strong effects. Giving all of your weather monsters it points to essentially Zeka or different dimension, crevice and different dimension or something just banish out.
Farfa, I think is
Farfa's a really good example. Is super powerful because obviously they'll return back as yours do. And then if it's destroyed, it floats into Rainbow, which is amazing because it cheats it out. And obviously Rainbow has a really strong effect if it was a link summoned. But just simply having the ability to float into a Rainbow, which gives all of your weather monsters Omni negates, is very powerful. This is, again, another piece of legacy support done right.
And I think what I like about this card is that it's a way better turn 1 setup, because historically, even if you could get to Rainbow with a couple of weather monsters underneath it, you're just setting 2 Solemn Judgments. A lot of decks are able to plow through negates because maybe they have back row destruction, or in this case, like monster negation. I mean, like, you know, and if a chalice on Rainbow forces out one of the negates, and then you only have to play through something else. A droplet immediately, you know, ends the turn. The fact this card floats and it also has a proactive effect, so that if your opponent has to play around it, you get more choice as to when you use it. I think historically proactive effects are better than negates, generally. That's why Drident is banned and like Borreload Savage Dragon isn't, for example. I mean, besides the access. So I think this card is really good. I think it's now the de facto turn 1, unless you open like the most insane hand of all time, and very quickly gets out of hand. I mean, watching replays, the fact this card floats on destruction is pretty good. The fact that it can just banish things out of your opponent's field is very annoying. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it was good enough to make everyone think the Inzektor support was trash, so... Which we can cover really quickly. I don't have the name of it up, but
Zektrike Kuu.
Yeah, the new Inzektor spell effectively says, I believe, discard a card.
Discard an Inzektor.
Discard an Inzektor to either special summon or equip from deck. An Inzektor card.
So it's special summon 1 Inzektor monster or equip an Inzektor monster, and the second effect is equip a Inzektor spell from deck. So it fetches out Zect-Caliber, essentially.
Pretty much anything. It's the Omni Rota Searcher Summoner thing that the deck, I guess, needed, but I don't think it provides the deck with anything exciting. Certainly not like this weather stuff has actually completely transformed a deck from unplayable to potentially rogue. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But,
I bought this.
Yeah.
I bought this deck because I think that the support is very powerful.
Classic Ruben, first time support is announced, buys the entire deck in max rarity. So look forward to seeing that in deck profiles. It's very pretty, actually. This deck
very
is
gorgeous
extremely
artwork.
Nice to look. I hope Moonbow is like a secret. I don't know. It just seems like it would be.
Please, it has to be.
Would match.
And then Forecast could be a super because that matches all the other canvases.
Yep. Joe, do you want to handle? Have you read the new? I mean, I don't know how much you've kept up with new cards, but these came out like in the last few days, so we can just quickly cover them.
No, I haven't really. I've seen a little bit of the Sylvan one, but yeah, the other one, no.
I can read it out then. So Dynorphia Rexstern.
So Dynorphia, for reference, for those who may not know, is support as an archetype debuting in Battle of Chaos.
Yep.
It is a dinosaur trap-based strategy that revolves on paying your life points as resources.
Yep. This deck regularly goes to like 6 life points. It's very funny.
Literally, we've watched replays where the life points get to like 18.
And they take advantage of being at a lower life total than the opponent. So they have a card similar to Death's Shadow from Magic, where the lower your life points are or the bigger the gap, the more attack it has. And it has a new boss monster called Dynorphia Rexstern. They also got a fusion spell that can...
Fusion Trap.
It's a fusion trap that pays half your life points, as most of theirs do. And it says, monsters your opponent controls with an attack equal or higher than your life points cannot activate their effects. Cannot activate. And then it has a quick effect. You can pay half your life points, and until the end of this turn, the attack of all monsters your opponent controls becomes equal to your life points. If this card is destroyed in battle or by a card effect, you can special summon 1 level 6 or lower Dynorphia monster from your graveyard. And for those of you who haven't read Dynorphia cards, anyone asking why this deck doesn't just die immediately is all of the traps in grave can protect you from damage. So effectively, you only want to pay your life points. And this card is legitimately quite insane.
Yeah, this partners with their new fusion trap that can use materials from extra deck to summon.
And important to note, this will regularly put you at 1,000 life points, I think, on the turn that you use its effect. So effectively just says your opponent's monsters can't activate their effects unless they're playing like a really low to the ground deck. And the quick effect effectively is just Madame Ver from Witchcrafter. Like it says, negate all of your opponent's monsters currently on the field, but it also makes them low attack. So it's really hard to out this because this has 3,000 attack points. It's really good. I mean, it gives this deck a really good boss monster. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
It's a huge floodgate monster. It's kind of gross.
Oh, and of course, if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special a level 6 or lower Dynorphia from grave, so it even floats.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, this card is going to... I mean, it is actually quite insane. I don't know if this will see splash engines in current dinosaur decks. I honestly think it could, because one of the level 4 Dynorphia monsters just adds any Dinorphia trap from deck to hand on summon, which can come off of Baby Ceresaurus. So it's pretty swag. I am really into this deck that just puts itself on 10 life points and then goes, kill me.
Yeah, I think this is a super fascinating deck build as well, because Trap Dinosaur isn't a thing we've seen before. This is a really versatile and like a fresh take on a typing that was just been known to Unga Bunga Smash hit you're dead with UCT. I think that the fusion's really strong. Obviously, they have other cards in their archetype that say you don't have to pay for your traps if your life points are less than 2,000. So you can essentially, basically your deck becomes Guiding Ariadne with counter traps, but it's normal traps.
Some of them are counter traps, actually.
There is a counter trap, that is correct.
I love that it fits with the reckless nature of dinosaurs. I think the reason dinosaurs have always been kind of like smack, no think is because that's what dinosaurs are like. And this still has that feel of just recklessly throwing away your life points for effects.
Yeah, Joe, since you're being around dinosaurs as a kid, do you think that that they behave in the same way, or
it's just brutal?
I mean, I like this. I feel like it's cool having new ways of playing the game, and I can't remember an archetype before that like relies on using life points as almost like a mana, I suppose. It's kind of cool. I like it. I think it's super unique, and Yu-Gi-Oh needs more things like that to like promote different types of decks. So
it certainly promotes not just playing dinosaurs the same as people have been playing them for the last 5 years. Yeah, and I think for that a lot. 5 years now, actually. Damn, it is 2022.
Oh, yeah, that deck did come out in 2017, huh?
But yeah, like it actually forces people down an avenue that says, normal OV is pretty good, but like, what else can we do, right?
Yeah, how about normal Dinorphia?
I mean, you can still normal OV in this deck, let's be real. That card ain't getting power crept anytime soon.
Yeah. And then, Joe, you've said you've touched on a bit of the new Sylvan support. So why don't you give us a go with the last piece of new support that we actually received yesterday?
I feel like this was like a Christmas wish, right? We wanted Sylvan support.
Yeah. I tried to buy a base before the support got announced, but that's okay. So is it Peon? Is that how that's pronounced?
Peon? I believe it's like peony, like the
peony,
flower.
the Sylvan
it's
dancer.
A grape girl. I don't know what grape peon. Maybe there's like a reference. Pinot Noir.
I believe it's linked
potentially. Yeah, peon, like Pinot. It is a link to, yes, and it's two plant monsters.
Yeah, 2 plant monsters, and you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. Number 1, if this card is link summoned, you can excavate up to 3 cards from the top of your deck. You can special summon up to 2 of the excavated plant monsters, but they cannot be used as link material. Also, send the rest to the grave. That's pretty strong. And number 2, you can target 1 plant monster in your graveyard that has a level. All the levels of the levels of all face-up monsters this card points to become that monster's level until the end of the turn.
So good.
Yeah,
that's really good. Yeah,
automatically I think of cards like Evil Thorn and Lone Fire Blossom just giving you a bunch of free high-level monsters, but not locking you like Rika does.
Only Snowdrop is the only Rika monster to lock you.
But Snowdrop is the one that mods levels.
Yes.
So that's one of the issues with that deck as an Xyz deck was that it locked you into plants, and there's not a lot of good plants. This doesn't.
No.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that you can't go into the link material is very meh. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. You can go into some pretty decent rank 8s.
This is like the only relevant Sylvan Link monster now, so...
Yeah, I really like it.
This is a really fascinating. I've watched some replays, and Peony is very strong. Obviously, it doesn't care. It just wants to see the things, revived. But cards like Sylvan Peacekeeper, they summon themselves out from grave. Obviously, Princess Sprout can reborn herself from grave by picking a level. Cherub Sprout can summon any Sprout monsters excavated. Things like Hermitry can, draw cards or excavate and then potentially draw 2. Sejakoya adding back, all your Sylvan cards, things like Sylvan Charity. Super powerful.
Yeah. I think the most cracked interaction with this card is when you summon 2 plants and excavate a Princess Sprite.
Princess Sprout.
Yeah. So you just get 3 monsters on the field for 1 card. I mean, that's gotta be good, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen a lot of using Spore is really powerful in this deck because that can modulate your levels. And it loves to be in grave. I've seen quite common end boards have been, I believe, things like Hope Harbinger, Bengalancer, and I think I even saw like the new level 11 psychic monster.
Yeah, well, what's cool is that you target a plant in your graveyard that has a level, and everything becomes that monster's level.
That's really cool.
Means you can just do whatever, right?
If you can put a level 5 extra deck toolbox,
If you put a level 5 or a 6, I mean, this makes Melee more playable. This makes the new Rika monster quite playable. The rank 4, which normally Sylvans just didn't have access to very easily.
Things like Lotus Swan is, I think, a level 5. Guardioka is maybe a 6 or something.
And obviously a lot of high level...
Not Martial Leaf, is it Snapdrassassinigan?
But also this is any plant engrave. It doesn't have to be Sylvan, right? So you're always going to have a 3 from Lone Fire, most likely 7s and 8s. And generally Konami likes to gatekeep the really strong Xyz monsters behind really high levels because it's hard to summon. And this just basically says, nah, 2 Evil Thorn is a Hope Harbinger. What do you mean? That's how you summon it, right? So yeah,
I think that's
pretty cool. Yeah,
like the fact that you can even just maybe you have a bit of a rank 4 toolbox in your extra deck if you can fit it in like a couple, maybe a Dweller Babuska, something like that. You can add in a couple of really strong rank 3s. I think it's really, really, really cool. It's going to be a super fun deck to play because Sylvan's has always been a fun deck in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
I think it's sad that this card doesn't have the variance of this card is a lot worse when you don't draw Sylvan Charity. I mean, you can still stack one card with Mount Sylvania, but you're only getting 1 card from this summon, which is still good, but you want to maximize the amount of value you're getting from this card because, of course, Sylvans aren't particularly strong. And as an Adamancipator player, I know that even off the top 5, getting 1 can be a bit of a whiff. So as long as you're playing a terminal velocity of plants, you may just get lucky, but it seems like this card is definitely meant to combo with other really strong cards, so you kind of have to draw those. Is the thing.
I think it's probably not going to be as strong as Weather is, but it'll be a really fun rogue deck, I reckon.
Absolutely. Yep. So just for reference, your level 4s are Blade Fender and Flower Knight are your Sylvans. So obviously, I believe Blade Defender is relatively strong. This one is add it from grave to hand. So that's great. I mean, you obviously want to engrave for things like Peony, but this deck has kind of always been, it was a shadow of Soul Charge, the ability for so many powerful Xyz to exist, as well as
Lone Fire and Soul Charge.
Lone Fire is super powerful.
It was Lone Fire into a Sylvan, followed by Soul Charge into Lone Fire. That was the play. And since Soul Charge went, this deck hasn't really had a play.
Yeah.
Obviously, it has its own. You can play Miracle Fertilizer. You can play, the cards
Super
themselves.
Solar Nutrient, that's another one.
Yeah. The cards themselves do reborn, but losing cards like Glow Up Bulb and Dandelion, and I guess they never really had Dandelion, but losing those cards hurts plants in general. So this is cool.
Yeah, this is again another piece of support done right, and it's not broken in the fact that plants use everything now because it simply says they can't use as link material, so it doesn't give you free link 4s.
Yep.
And then finally, obviously, we've had a lot of new support. We'd love to cover a bit more, but, we don't want to, make this just a word vomit podcast, is the next core set for Japan. So this is the second core set of the year for Japan. This will be our third one. So this is most likely going to be our July, August release, is a set called Power of the Elements. Now, not a lot is known about this.
Literally nothing is known.
Just the name. However, and this is probably the reason why Lucas has put it on as a little discussion point, it is rumored to be a hero support set. Now, I can't confirm these rumors. I can't say that this is absolutely true. It is merely whispers in the willows, whispers in the hermit trees.
Well, there's two kind of evidence points towards it. One is that we just got Starlight Stratos, and I'm of the opinion that was the weird pick of Burst of Destiny. I really thought it was going to be Destroy Phoenix Enforcer or something else. But that says to me that they are continuing to acknowledge that heroes sell sets. And since Legendary Duelist and a couple of Destiny hero cards now, we haven't had a lot of hero support. So it's definitely time for elemental heroes to get something. Is the rumor that the set name is the same kanji for elemental heroes? Because obviously this is a translated name.
I wouldn't know. It's purely just speculation online. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of what people are hoping for from the set, if it does turn out to be like hero support, is it focuses on the elemental heroes. It doesn't focus so much on, Burst Destiny had the Destiny heroes. Legendary Duelist has the evil heroes. We're a bit way off from a retrain of the hero strike structure deck. I believe like 3 years if they're following their current metric. But
well, that's a masked hero deck.
That's also masked heroes. They've done vision heroes. So there hasn't been a lot of like elemental hero support, bar things like Liquid Soldier and Sunrise. That's really the only.
If you look at my current hero list, I am playing 3 elemental heroes total in the main deck. It's 1 Stratos, 1 Shadow Mist, and 1 Liquid Soldier. They are by far the weakest, which is crazy because Stratos was like the banned card for so long. But I don't think elemental heroes and their like relevant fusions have been good since Stratos was inevitably banned back in the day. So it would be cool to see cards like Grand Merge, maybe retrains of Flame Wingman, maybe something that makes Infernal Devicer more playable because that card's extremely good. It just locks you into fusions for the turn, so you can't mix it with the other Link 2, which is way better because it's the Destiny hero one, and Destiny heroes have always been the best heroes. So if that's true, I'm excited. If not, bring on some pyro support because it's an element, why not?
Fire is an element. And I think also like it's rumored to be like, if we also following the similar metric, we've had Synchro Storm and Jewels from the Deep. So we've had wind and water legendary duelist support. We've also had obviously Immortal Destiny was dark, or you think of like Rage of Ra, that was might have been more dark focus because it was all like Jinzo.
Divine.
Yeah, divine, really. It wasn't too, focused. But I think a lot of people are expecting your next legendary duelist set to either be earth or fire.
Did they not announce a fire one?
They have not announced a fire legendary duelist.
For some reason I have a memory of that. That might have just been a dream. And
Let's
that's
make
it.
it a reality.
That's all the cool stuff we wanted to cover.
Yeah, I guess final parting thoughts. Seeing as we've seen so much legacy support, what do you think could be next in Power of the Elements? Joe, any archetype that you think maybe we'll see just a shred of support in Power of the Elements? We haven't even seen the entire Dimension Force list, so
I'm going to say Volcanics.
Yeah, baby.
Great choice. Yeah. I think that's a phenomenal idea.
Why not?
Lucas, obviously, no spoilers, but what archetype would you like to see support in?
In Power of the Elements?
Yeah.
My girl Doriado, I reckon. She's due. I don't know, invoked.
I think for me, I probably would like to see like Teller, maybe some Tellarknight stuff.
Yeah,
because we're seeing we saw Heroic Champion are getting support in Dimension Force, so makes sense. I could put another
Element Savers. Actually, that deck is good, and it got completely stomped by like just the combination of Code of the Duelist decks being and Zodiac decks. Like that deck has plays, and it never really got to actually do them. So that would be cool, getting some Element Saver support. A little bit more like give them a painful choice. They probably need it. Let's be real.
Yeah.
All right. We were going to talk about the new formats, but we probably actually already hit quite a long runtime.
We have indeed.
Yeah. We might save that for another episode, maybe.
I think that could almost be a full episode in itself.
We are the cross-ban list champion. I mean, besides Lithium, obviously, but we've championed that for a while, so there's probably a lot we can talk about. Happy 2022, baby.
Yeah, I'm going to have a great Invoke list 2022.
Yeah, and we're going to get Master Duel this year, so
look out for that.
It's going to be wild.
It's going to be a really fun time, I think.
This might be the biggest year for Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever. Ever.
Not to mention 1 month away from a 3v3 in Palmerston North as well.
Woo! Yes, make sure any New Zealand listeners make sure to register for the Valkyrie Games weekend of Yu-Gi-Oh! Fun. We have it's not a regional.
Joe promo. Come on.
Joe promo.
No. Okay. It is a 3v3 on the 5th of February event. So, and the first prize for that is 3 boxes of OTS 17. So
whoa, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a pretty huge first place prize.
That's crazy.
And so far, I think there's 7 teams registered, but there's a lot of local teams that I know of that haven't actually put their hand in the thing yet. So we want Yeah, people show up on the
show
day
up.
as well.
You're like, I'm here, and you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, it's booked out. See ya. But no, yeah. So that's on the 5th. The registration is up on Facebook for that, as well as the Valkyrie Games website. And the next event, the following day on the 6th. Oh, and there hasn't been confirmed yet, there could be potentially a sneak on that night as well. But we don't know yet with the shipping delays and things like that.
Yeah, that will be the Battle of Chaos premiere event.
Oh, yeah, so that'll be same weekend. And then on the Sunday, we will have a multi-format championship. Yeah, which will just be a good bit of fun. There we go.
I'm excited. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
Waitangi weekend or Waitangi weekend for us in New Zealand. So sucks to all of you who haven't booked accommodation because it's a public holiday weekend. Or if you feel like going to see the stock cars in Palmerston North, that's also booked out.
Yeah,
so
apparently normal summon towers,
huge.
okay.
Yeah, and tribute summon Apocryphal Towers, ? Thank you.
Response? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Thank you. All right. Well, so thank you so much for listening. Obviously, a little bit of like a recap episode. Hopefully, we're going to be, focusing on some more exciting news coming out. We've seen the new Dimension Force stuff come out. We want to see announcements for Battle of Chaos.
There's a
ban list
yeah.
is on the horizon.
We were way too early now. We were like so scared it was going to come out before the podcast. We got in there.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. You got to watch out. So yeah, hopefully, please, as always, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube. It does help out. Follow us on your preferred podcasting app. And if you have any questions, queries, qualms, or concerns, feel free to email us at thefacedowns@gmail.com. That's thefacedowns@gmail.com. Send us a follow on Twitter. Those will be all linked in the YouTube description. We all have 3 very unique naming conventions, so we've made it super easy for you.
It's called diversification.
Yeah, it's diversification. Thank you. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I'm Ruben.
I'm Lucas.
And I'm Joe.
And you have been listening to
The Face Downs.
Do it longer now because I know you're a second behind.